So today we're covering, as I say, setting up Outbox documents. We're going to cover 4 types of documents. Text documents, not to be confused with texting. So text documents use a rich text editor, which is a similar editor to the one you'll find in WordPad on your Windows application. The second one we'll cover is health docs. The third one, SMS templates. And the final one, Word templates. So we're going to start off today with text document templates, which are the most commonly used type of templates. So we're going to go into Setup, in Outbox, Outbox document. And here I have a list of pre-existing templates that I can use. Now, every version of Medtech comes when it's originally installed with a default set of sample templates that you can either use as they are or adapt for your own use. Otherwise, you can set up new ones. So I've created a few here which we're going to use today, these sample documents. So if you don't have access to this, if when you click on Setup in Outbox document, it says, sorry, you do not have access to this facility, then you will need to speak to someone in your practice who can provide that setup, that access if you need it. So we now have the list open, so I'm going to select this one as my first example. And we're just going to first of all talk about what these fields are and what they do. So we have to give our document template a code. So if you're setting up a new one, you would add in a code, just something that makes sense to you, up to about 6 characters you can use in there, and a description of what the document is going to be used for. And the folder, we would put our document templates into a folder called document. So each practice will have a different list, a different drop-down list of what options they have in here. But generally speaking, we would select document for our document templates. And then format. So this is where we're going to enter the type of template that we're going to build. So in this case, the first one is going to be a text document. And as I said, we're using rich text editor in this case, as opposed to Word itself. So the options here are a health doc, which we'll talk about later, manage my health, which we won't be covering today, SMS, which is a texting document, text, which we're going to do now, and Word. So we've selected text. This field here called refer to refers to a option that you can put in here from your address book. You could select a person from your address book to enter into this field if you are going to send this template to the same person every time. Now that is quite unusual, but obviously it is there if you are going to do this. Likewise, the copy to 1, 2, 3, and 4 also give you the provision to send copies to, again from the address book, to up to 4 different people at the same time when you are sending this document out. Now, when you select the 4 here in the template, every time you use this template, those same 4 people will get a copy. Now again, this is often not what you're intending to do, because you might select a copy to when you are creating the document itself to send to a patient or a person in your address book. And we can do that as we are sending the letter out, rather than doing it in the template where we would have to come in and change it every time we were going to select a different person. Referral type and the cost are fields that are not generally used. We will select the paper size, so we have a choice of A4 and A5, so perhaps for this particular document we'll select A5. We can choose the orientation of the document, so it might be the default, which is portrait, or you might want to select a landscape orientation. If you would like your logo to print at the top of your document, you would have this ticked. Saves you having to set it up in the document itself. Print preview, we'll come back to this button shortly. If you have already created a header or a footer for your documents in the location setup, then you might want to allow some extra lines for these to be placed. Unload reference is for if an outside or an external person was going to be receiving an electronic unload of this template. Again, not a feature that would be often used. Tasks. This is where, when you set up a template, you would like a reminder or follow-up reminder task sent to a provider at a predetermined period after the document has gone out to the patient. Again, this is in the template, so you might not always want this set up, and you can set these up for individual letters also as you send them, instead of presetting them up for the template itself. And finally, on this page, you've got an inactive button. So if you don't want the document anymore, or they don't want to use the template anymore, then it can be inactivated. So next we go to the document tab. And here's one that I have prepared earlier. And it's a straightforward, fairly simple referral letter. And so it contains merge fields. And what merge fields are, I'm going to assume that we're starting right from scratch. Merge fields on your template will allow you to pick up information in regard to the person that you're sending the document to, and the patient that it applies to, and the provider that is completing this letter to go out to an individual patient. So with templates, you don't want to have to recreate all of this stuff here every time you want to write a letter to a patient. You want it to pre-format some of that information when you bring that letter up to send out. So we'll start off with, I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to remove this. So I'm going to put it in again to show you how to put merge fields into your document. So over here, you have an insert button. This allows you to insert merge fields into your template. So it can be a bit confusing to look at to start with, but it does make sense when you get when you started using it. So the merge fields are in tables or sets, if you like. So if we drop down this, you will see that we have a set of merge fields for reference to the patient themselves, and this is generally the F3 screen. We have merge fields that relate to the payer. We have merge fields that relate to the person that we're sending the document to. So these are people whose information is on the address book. If you don't put information into your addressees, so when you set your address book up and you put your people's names into your address book, if you don't add in their address or their phone numbers or their NZMC number, you won't be able to pre-populate your document with those fields. They will just be empty. We have merge fields for clinical information, which we'll go through a little bit later, and so on and so forth. There are so many merge fields in here, I can't possibly go through them all today. But if you've got any questions relating to individual merge fields, I'm happy to answer them as a question. So right now we're going to look at the date field. Now the date field is in a table called miscellaneous. So it's worthwhile becoming familiar with these merge fields and where they're located. So down here at the bottom, we have today's date, and we can choose whether we want it in short format or long format. So we'll choose the short format and OK. And this will enter that merge field wherever my cursor was. The default Font size is slightly smaller than what I've chosen for this template. I increased the font sizes so that you could see it all a little bit better. So along here, you've got some formatting features which you can apply to your document. So not as many as Word, but enough to set up a simple document. So you can choose your style, your font size, bold, underline, italics. You can center and justify your text, and you can add bullet points in. So this particular document is going to go to another provider, an external provider. So I'm going to select merge fields that start with 2. And these 2 merge fields all relate to information that's stored in the address book. So the first one I've selected here is 2, the pre-formatted name. We go into the insert fields and select 2. We've got the pre-formatted name here. And if we go OK, that will enter that name, that merge field, exactly where my cursor was when I chose it. I'm just going to come out of here for a second, just to show you where that is in relation to the tables that you're selecting. So if I just come out of here for a second, save that. We go into set up agency's address book, or you can use your icon on your toolbar and open up an addressee. You will see here that it says pre-formatted name. That is what is going to populate onto our document when we create the new letter. So it's going to say Mr. Basil Brush, and that pre-formatted name is picked up from the surname, the first name, and the title that you enter into the address book. So if you do not enter a title, then the pre-formatted name would be Basil. If you don't enter a first name, then the pre-formatted name would just be the surname. So if it doesn't look right on your document, this would be the first place that you would go and look for why that information hasn't populated onto your document as you would expect it to. I'll just close that and come back into our letter. So next lot of fields we're going to put in regard to the patient. So these all start with PAT for patient. So we go to the insert fields, and it's the first set of fields that you come across, which are patient keywords. And here, these pretty much all relate to information that's stored on the F3 screen. Very similar to your query builder fields. Okay. So I've selected the surname. So in order to find the surname, I can just type in surname, and the cursor will then go and find it for you, which saves a lot of time scrolling up and down these lists. I might want to add in the patient's title. So depending on how formal or informal you want your information here to be, it could be regarding Minnie Mouse, or it could be regarding Mrs. or Miss Minnie Mouse. So I can add the title here. So I'm going to put the cursor at the beginning, go into my insert fields, type in title, and go OK. And that's now added the title into it. It hasn't formatted it in bold as I've just entered it. So I would need to click on the bold, highlight it, and click on the bold to capture that, make it the same. Now, one of the things that happens quite frequently when you're highlighting a field to either bold it or unbold it is you may miss picking up a bracket. And what will happen if you do miss a bracket is that when you go to create the document for this template, it will show you the merge field instead of the patient's name. And you might wonder why that's happened. And that's because the formatting is different on part of the merge field. So it all has to be exactly the same. So every single part of it must be bolded or unbolded or italiced or unitaliced. and you can't have bits of it, one or the other. Oops, wait, the wrong way around. And rather than trying to fiddle around, trying to bold just a bracket by itself, it's sometimes easier to take the whole thing out and start again. So I might also want to add in here, down here, what might I also need is the patient's phone numbers. So I can go into here and put in home, and this will find, oops, wrong fields, into patient keywords and type in home again. And it's gone to the home fields, and here I've got the home phone number. And it's put in the merge field. Now this will just put in the phone number. What I would probably want to do, so that the person receiving this document knew what that number was, is to type in here home phone, and I tend to like to put a colon in just to keep it a bit tidier. And you can see that that's now dropped onto another line, so I would tidy that up and just move it across with my tab key. Then I can put in here, I can leave this because whoever's using this template. So we've now got the home phone number in, and likewise we could put a space and work phone and pick up the insert for the patient's work number. And there it is there. And you can go on adding other information that you want. Then, as I said, down here, we will decide, do I want to be formal, informal, or do I want to decide on the day how I address this letter to the patient or to the provider? Sometimes doctors know each other and it might be just their first name. Sometimes it might be the full pre-formatted name. So if it's, say, just, I tend to know who my people are that I'm going to refer letters to, so I might just want to put the person to whom I'm sending it to's given name rather than just their pre-formatted name. So we will come back into the fields to do with the document receiver and choose given name and pop that in here. So now it's going to say, in the case of me addressing this letter to Dr. Basil or Mr. Basil Brush, it will now just say, Dear Basil. And then down here, we've got the merge field for the provider name and the merge field for the location name. So we come back up here, and this is where they would be. So we would open this up and look for the provider keywords. So this is the document encounter provider keywords. So this relates to the person that's writing this letter, as opposed to the patient's provider, which would be located under the patient merge fields. Most of the time, the person that's actually writing the letter would be the person whose name would go into the bottom of it. So those fields are in here. And again, we have a pre-formatted external name, which is picked up from the staff member profile. So if you know your staff member setup, you will know that there's a pre-formatted external name. And this is the one we want. It usually contains the person's title, first name, and surname. And the location name would be stored under location fields, which are this one here. And so we have the name of the location, which we can add in here. So that's a little bit about adding merge fields in. But as I said, there's all manner of types of merge fields that we can use. We will be using some other ones as we go through this, this session. So if we now save that information and go into a new document, and we'll pick up the document that we've just been working on. And I'm going to address it to Mr. Brush in our address book. And now you can see that it has pre-populated. I'll open that up a bit so you can see it better. It's opened up those merge. It's applied all those merge fields that we've put into the template. In this case here, it's left a gap, and that's because in the address book, there is a gap under the residency field. And so if there is a residence name, like a name of an office that Mr. Brush might be working in, then that would go in underneath. But if that field is blank, then correspondingly, the document will have a blank field as well. You'll also notice that the phone numbers haven't been picked up here. And that's because, nor the NHI number, and that's because that information is not in this particular patient's file. So that will be why that's not there. So if we close this, just to give you an example, and go into the F3 screen and add a work number. And I can't add an NHI number because they are, I don't have dummy NHI numbers, and go OK. Close this, come back into our new document. Okay. Now you can see that the work number has pre-populated into our Outbox document. So I can, if in this case I'm being a bit formal to Mr. Brush, I can type his name in at this point, which I can do, and I can now start typing my letter. Now, the other thing that we can do here, because I've left this fairly blank here, is we can use the wizard. So just briefly, I'm sure lots of you already do use this and know how to use it. Just for those that haven't got much experience in using the wizard, we can enter data into our document through using this facility. So I've clicked on the wizard, it's opened up this panel here. I can put today's consultation notes in, or I can put a date range in, or I can put every consultation note that has been written into my document by ticking the various options here. I can add in his long-term medication or her long-term medications, her long-term classifications. I could put in medical warnings. I could select some information from these fields here. I could add in some inbox records like lab tests or X-ray results if there were any available. Wherever I put my cursor in my document, this is where the data will go when I click on the insert option. And as you can see, that's now been entered into the document. I can add further information. I can edit this information. If it's not very tidy, some doctors are not very tidy, or even nurses are not too tidy in their document writing, you can edit this, take words in, add words to it. Then I can print it out, put it in an envelope and pop it in the snail mail, or I could send it to a recipient that has a HealthLink address. So if I select HealthLink recipient, in this case, it's going to add in the EDI of Mr. Brush because I have already put that EDI into the correct field on the address book. If this is blank and you happen to have the EDI, you can type it in. So it is a worthwhile exercise if you want to use this feature, is to go through the address book and enter the EDIs into the address book. They can be found, the whole country's worth of EDIs can be found on the HealthLink website. So we can cancel this because I don't have HealthLink installed, so it's not going to go anywhere anyway. So I could also email it. So I could click on email. This will open up my Outlook and or whatever my email client is, and it will attach that document as a Word document, as a text document. Now, being aware that a lot of referral letters contain clinical information, it would not always be advisable to do that. In fact, most cases it wouldn't be advisable to do that. HealthLink is the best option. Or so now my letter's headed off into wherever I've sent it to. So the next letter we're going to have a look at is a slightly different formatted letter. So I've called this one a clinical letter. And rather than using the wizard, I want to add in some pre-formatted clinical data. So the front page here has been set up exactly the same way with using exactly the same fields as the other one. So clicking onto the document, and again, the top part of this template has also been set up exactly the same way. This is still a referral letter. But down here, I've added in some pre-formatted data. I may just not like using the wizard. And so this allows you that option to not have to type everything out or copy and paste it from the consultation screen. So to add in this clinical data, we're going to use some merge fields from the front page. For those of you who use the clinical patient manager, you'll know that there's a front page option in there. Fields that populate that front desk can be used to add in some clinical information from the for your template. So we're going to click on front page, and in here we have some clinical fields. So we've got some fields in regard to medications, classifications, medical warnings, recalls, and patient history. Sorry, that's the other one that might be useful. So the medication fields, there's a number of them, depending on how much detail you want to add into your document. Do you want to add in dosage and frequencies or not? So the one I've chosen does not have the status. Oh, sorry, dosage, frequency, and status. I've chosen one that is long-term medications with dose, and that's the field I've selected. No, it's not here. And frequency. This is the one I've selected. So you choose the one that is appropriate for your letter. I've also added in long-term classifications. So that's what the DX stands for. And that one's this one here. I've also included medical warnings. And I've also included some accident information. Now, the accident information is not under the front page table. It's in the miscellaneous table. So I'm going to come into here. And in here, we can add up to 4 accidents at any one time. So the first one doesn't have a number. So there isn't a number 1. The first one is just blank. So I've chosen the accident date, the accident details, which is this one, and the accident number, which is this one. And then I've done exactly the same for a second accident. Accident date, accident details, accident number for the second accident. And I'll show you how to enter that information onto the document that you're going to send. I've also put into this particular document 3 little dots here, and I'll show you what they do. Another tip that will help you when you're setting up document templates is on the main page, we've got this option here called Print Preview. Before this button was here, whenever we were setting up a template, we'd have to save it, open up a patient, open up the document, and test just to make sure that all the merge fields are in the right places and the document looks nice. And then if it didn't, we'd have to come all the way back into the setup to fix it. Now that we have a print preview, we can see this. We can't see the person we're going to send it to because we haven't selected anybody. Excuse me. But we can see that all the merge fields that we have put into this document are working. So it's picking up the long-term medications, it's picking up the classifications and the medical warnings, and it's picking up the doctor's name of the provider that's setting up this template and the name of the practice. So this gives you a view, and you might want to edit something you might not like, you might put a typo in, so you want to fix it. So you can come back into the document, fix the error, and then just check again that it looks good before you come out of the setup. So that's quite a big time saver. So we're going to OK this template, and then up in New, And we'll choose clinical sample. And again, we'll send it to Mr. Brush. I'll make that bigger for you. And you can see that now we haven't had to go to the wizard to enter this clinical information into our document. And it will still allow us to add further information should we want to type more in. Now, one of the things I also put on that template were 3 little dots, which I said I'd explain what those are. So everybody struggles with where their mouse is. It could be up in the corner here, it could be down in the bottom here, it could be anywhere, it could be sitting in your document here. Using 3 little dots and then clicking on the Go Dot button here, it will take those dots out and put your cursor exactly where you want to start typing your letter. That really makes it handy, so you're not looking for where to start typing. This is where you would start with your letter to Mr. Brush. So again, you've got the same send to options to HealthLink recipient or email or printing and posting. So third letter in this text session, this is the last one, and we'll move on to the next heading. Not all your letters need to be clinical letters. They most often are, but you can have any sort of letters, any type of letters. So I've created one here to do with a patient's account. And again, this front page, exactly the same. In the document here, the merge fields, this is going to the patient's address. So again, we've selected to the patient pre-formatted name, the patient's home address, and the patient's home city. And dear patient's first name. Again, you can be as formal or informal as you like, depending on the merge fields that you put in this area here. So I've put in payer balance. So payer is another area of insert fields that we can select. So we've got payer fields here. So whether the patient is the payer or whether the patient has a payer, a different payer, doesn't matter. It's whatever the payer's balance is. So at the top of this payer field of options, we've got account balance, and I've popped that in here. The wording can be whatever you want it to be, but this is just an example. And then I want to put in the patient's date of last invoice. The date of last invoice can be picked up from the patient merge fields. And if we look in here and select date, we have the date of last invoice in here. So that gives you just a little bit of an idea that you might want to choose to write some letters that are non-clinical letters. Other than that, it's exactly the same process. So the next type of document is a health document. And I'll just open one up that I've already prepared. And I've selected the format here as health doc. Now the only difference, so back to health docs. So health doc is exactly the same as a text document, except that it allows you to add an attachment. So when you're setting up a health doc, you can change the format here to be a health doc format. And the document itself would be exactly the same as any text document that you would want to set up. So all the merge fields and all the formatting would be the same as any text document that you're creating. So from this end, it looks no different to a text document. So we're going to go OK. And we're going to go into a new document and we're going to select the health doc this time. And we're not going to address it to a particular person because we just go, or we can send it to Mr. Brush as well. And the only difference that you will see is that there's now a tab here that's called Attachments, which isn't available in any other type of document template. So I'm going to click on Attachments here and over here to Attachments. And this works very similar to the Attachments Manager. So I'm going to browse to where I have stored my attachment, whatever it might be. It could be a photograph. It could be for going to a referral, so it could be a nasty photograph of somebody's condition. It can be a PDF document that you want to accompany with the letter that you're sending. So pretty much any type of file. Now, rather than take a photo of somebody's gross body part, I have selected a picture of my little dog. So this would be wherever I've saved it. So if I go into Pictures and to my saved documents, my saved pictures here. So whatever folder you've put it in, wherever on your computer system it is stored, you will be able to find it and pick it up and go OK. And we're going to then open that. So now I will add it in here. I can delete it, I can edit it, and I can view it. And there's the little picture of my little dog. She was only 6 weeks old then. So I can go OK. And now that document, that picture is now attached to my document that I might want to send to someone electronically, or I might want to print it along with the printout. Now you'll notice here that the Send To option here has been grayed out. That's normal for Health Doc. We're going to click on Transmit, and on the assumption that the EDI is already in the system, it will transmit this Health Doc directly to Dr. Brush as soon as I click on the Transmit button, and it's done. Now, if you want to check up on anything to do with messaging, now as I said, I don't have HealthLink. If you want to check up that that document has gone, you can do that through Tools, Message Transfer, Messages Lodged, and in this case the Health Doc, and there's the Health Doc that I've just created. It's sitting here waiting to go. So you would get a status message, and that would reassure you that it's gone, or that it's been received, or that there was an error message, or whatever else sitting in there waiting to go. Okay, so that's Health Docs. Next one is an SMS template. So going into here, so again, the principles are the same. It's the front page setup is that it's a code, a name of your template. It's going into the document folder. It's fine in the document folder, and the format is SMS. And when we create, and we wouldn't want a logo printed, so make sure you don't put a tick in here, because SMS templates can only be 154 characters long. So if it's longer than 154, the message gets splits into two messages, and that can incur an extra charge to the patient when they receive it. So you want to at least try and keep your messages under 154 characters. Now, nobody wants to set up a template and go and count 1, 2, and the spaces count as a character as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, drive you nuts. So little tip here, what you can do, save you a bit of time, is just highlight what you think your message wants to be, right click on it and copy, or just go Control Copy, open up a Word document, just any old blank document, and paste it in there. And down here, you will see it tells me I've got 24 words, which is not very helpful. But if you click on here, it will tell you how many characters you have with spaces. So I have 151, which is pretty close to my limit, so that's good enough for me. So I can close that. So I say it saves you a bit of time from having to count all those characters. So that's my template. I try and keep my text templates fairly informal. So I've just included the patient's first name rather than their full name. It gives me a bit more opportunity to type my message. And I do tend to put in here, please don't reply to this message. Patients still do, but I can't stop that. So there's my template. If I come out of here and go into my text edit here, and I can now select that template from here and send that out to my patient. I actually saw it says 144, so Word is slightly different. Okay, so it does tell you here that it's 144, but not sure why Word counted it 10, yeah, a few less, a few more. Okay, so you can have as many SMS templates as you send messages out to patients. It just saves you the time of typing them in. So if we can't just come out of here, and we'll go into the last one, which is a Word template. So Word, again, the front page is fairly similar to a Word, the others, except that in here, we're going to put in Word format. And this opens up a little Word symbol over here. Now, in order to set up a Word document, you do have to have Word. So I know that sounds obvious, but there are other word processing applications out there. So like if you're using a MacBook, you might have Pages, and that isn't going to work with this option. So we're going to go OK. Oh, sorry, I'll just go out again. At this point, this is all I want to do. So I'm going to set up a new Word template. So you'll notice here there's no document tab. So at this point, if I click on Word, it opens up in my tray. Again, different versions of Word do open up differently. Sometimes they will open up right in front of you. Sometimes they will open up in the tray, and depending on how you've got your system set up. And you can see here it's a blank document. There's nothing in it, and that's exactly what I want at the moment. So I'm going to close that and close out of here. Now, in order to create a Word template, the template has to be created in Word. So I'm going to open Word up independently of Medtech and go into a template that I've created earlier. So it has tables in here. So in rich text editor, you can't add in tables, and you can't put tick boxes in, and you can't do a lot of the whistles and bells and the nice formatting that you options that you have in the Word editor. So I've just created a sample template here. I've just used an old one that I had lying around, and you can see there's no merge fields in here, which isn't very helpful. Well, there's one that I left behind. There's one here. And there's also no button on Word to enter the merge fields. So various people will have worked out various ways of doing this. So this way is my way, but there are other ways that you could enter the merge fields into your Word template. But I think this is a reasonably straightforward and simple way. So I have my Word, I have Word open, and I'm going to go back into Medtech. And again, a document that I set up earlier called Merge Fields. So I'm going to open that document, and that's just a straightforward text document. And in the document, I've just dumped basically a whole lot of merge fields that I might use when I'm setting up a Word template. So I've just gone into here, picked out what I wanted, and entered it onto this document. So I have this open. Now, the first field was the title in that. So I'll find where I've put the patient's title, and perhaps I didn't put the title on here, so let's go and grab that one. So on the patient, keywords, title, pop that in here, down here, and copy it. And you can right click and copy, or you can control C on your keyboard. Go back into Word, pop your cursor where you want it, and Control V or right click and paste. And then the same for all the other fields that I want. Pop back into Medtech, and I want the patient's surname. So I will highlight. Probably what I would do is put these in a better order so that I can find them easier. Copy, go back to my template and paste. And gender, and so on and so forth, until I've added all the merge fields that I want into my Word template. Oops. Control V, let's pop that in there. So again, I'm not going to go through every one of them. I'm sure you've got the gist of it by now. And now the key things to remember here is that I must save this in, and the next thing I'm going to do is to select everything so that I can copy it. So I will select all, and then Control C or right click and copy, and then I can close my template. I save it because if I now get interrupted and I don't get this to do the next bit, I don't want to have to go and do all that work again. So now I'm going to go in to close this template and go back into my Word template and open up Word within Medtech. And still, it will also still open in the tray. And this is my blank document that I showed you earlier. And now I'm going to paste my template into this, including the merge fields that I've entered. You may find that your margins might be a little bit different. So you may have to fiddle around with the layout to make that look exactly the same as it did in Word. And then I must save this here. Then I can close this, and I then must save it also here. So it's a two-step save process here in order to use it. So I've now created a Word template, and this is how I would go and use it. So go into New Document again, select the Word template. Now, instead of opening up as the text document did, we've put a symbol here, which is the Word symbol. So go in here and open it up. And here is my document along with my merge fields that I entered. So Mrs. Mouse, Minnie. Oh, I put Minnie in the date of birth. Sorry about that. And so on. So that's how you would enter the merge fields into a Word template. So that concludes today's webinar.